Hey guys, it's Max. We just got in the brand new iPhone 12 Pro Max. It's been a long wait, and today we're gonna put it up head to head against its biggest competitor by far, the Galaxy Note 20 Ultra. Now, you guys probably know that I love the Note 20 Ultra. It is better than the 11 Pro Max. Awesome phone, and we're gonna find out, did Apple do enough with the new iPhone to make it compete? Let's start out with the exteriors, and I wanna talk about comfort. Now, believe it or not, the 12 Pro Max is actually more comfortable to hold in the hand than the 11 Pro Max, even though it's slightly bigger because of the squared off edges. Now, comparing it to the Note 20 Ultra, it really is a hit or miss. In some ways, the Note 20 is more comfortable. The rounded edges here, they make it feel slimmer in the hand. It doesn't feel as thick, even though it's actually thicker, but this little square edge at the bottom kind of digs into your palm, whereas the iPhone, it has these nice rounded edges over here, and it just fits really nicely in the hand. Let's go ahead and stack these side by side, and you could see that the iPhone's actually slightly wider than the Samsung, but the Note 20 is actually slightly taller because it has a 6.9-inch display with a wider aspect ratio. And then if we take a look at the camera bump, so we have a pretty big difference. Apple has this etched glass design, and it's completely square with 3 separate lenses inside of it, where Samsung is just going from one massive rectangular slate. Of course, the Samsung sticks out quite a bit more. Apple actually has a 3-tier system, like a pyramid. We have the glass first, then we have the rings, the gold ones, and then we have the lenses that stick out even more. It seems like they're trying to hide the little camera bump, trying to make it smaller, where Samsung is just embracing it. Now, you may also notice a couple other differences here in the actual camera modules, and I'm gonna talk about that in a little bit when we talk about cameras. You also probably noticed the difference in color. This year, the gold on the iPhone 12 Pro Max for the gold model looks more like gold, but the back looks less like gold. It almost looks whitish, especially next to the bronze on the Note 20. Now, I definitely would have to say that I wish I could have this bronze on the back of the iPhone. I really like that deep, nice color. One thing I don't like is that we still have to have this little IMEI note code and manufacturing on there. I love the clean look of the iPhone. Looking at the bottom, the Note uses USB Type-C compared to Lightning on the iPhone. I do wish the iPhone would use USB Type-C. And you'll also notice that we have the S Pen on the Note, which we're gonna talk about in just a little bit. Flipping over to the sides, this is a massive difference in design. The Note goes for this tiny slim frame because all this glass is curved, whereas the iPhone has this massive frame, and the iPhone just has one button for the screen on the right side, and it is huge. It's very clicky, it feels really great. The Note actually has the volume buttons on the same side, which I do like, but you have to reach all the way up. You have to shift your hand to be able to reach them. The iPhone has the volume buttons on the left-hand side and also a mute switch, which I do really like, whereas the Note is absolutely clean on the left. Overall, I'm surprised to say that the iPhone both feels nicer in the hand, a little bit more premium, and more comfortable at the same time, and I wasn't expecting that. And comparing the fronts, you guys see there's a big difference in bezels and camera cutouts and notches. So the bezel on the Note 20 is extremely small because that glass is curved over the edge. It hides the bezel, makes it almost disappear, whereas on the iPhone, it's completely flat, no hiding it, so you see it much more. Now, it is completely even all around, which is nice, instead of having a different forehead and chin and sides. And then, of course, we have that notch, which does stick out a lot compared to that cutout. I have to say that the Note 20 does look more futuristic because those bezels are so slim and we don't have the notch, but because the glass is curved, it's a lot more prone to shattering if you drop it. The iPhone's flat glass in the frame is more protective, and with that, Apple is using the new ceramic shield glass that is a lot stronger in terms of drop protection. The other thing I noticed is the off-axis shift. The Note 20 is using older OLED technology, so when you look from the side, even slightly, it turns blue and it loses more brightness than the iPhone. And the new 12s, they're the first OLED screens that don't shift blue when you're looking from the side. And now let's compare the brightness. I'm gonna max both of these out. and I do have them set to manual brightness. And here you guys can see the difference. The iPhone is much brighter. It's at about 900 nits compared to maybe about 600 or 500 on the Note 20. And that is just because Samsung limits the brightness in manual mode. If we were to go outside in a very sunny day, they would look identical as they have in the past. You just don't have the extra option to boost it yourself. We also have a difference in screen reflectivity. The Note 20 doesn't have as good of coatings. So it's a little bit more reflective, and along with that, because of the rounded curved edges, you get a lot more reflections there as well. Now I want to point something out right now while I have a chance. I love the always on display on the Samsung. I don't know why Apple is still not giving us that option, just to be able to glance over and see your notifications, the time. It's really nice. You'll also be able to notice this little fingerprint here. Of course, the Note 20 Ultra has an under display fingerprint sensor, and that one is ultrasonic, and it works really well most of the time. We're seeing a little bit of lag there. Overall, it's way better than when these first came out. Back then, Face ID was way better. Now, if you're wearing a mask, it's really nice to have that. In other cases, Face ID is more convenient. For example, if you have an application open and it wants to authenticate, you don't really have to do anything. It'll just be automatic. You don't have to move your finger or shift your hand. So in general, I do prefer Face ID a little bit more. And the other difference in displays is the fact that with the Note 20, you can switch it to 120 Hertz. Now, if you do that, you lower the screen resolution. It goes down to a 1080p screen. And with that, you do get much smoother motion. So here's the side by side for you guys. We're gonna shoot 4K 120 FPS slow motion so you guys can see the differences. The Note 20 is definitely a lot smoother. But with that said, when I did use the Note 20, I would switch it to the high res mode because text just didn't look as crisp. There's a little bit of blurriness, and I just like the higher resolution. I will say, I do wish that the iPhone, the next one, comes with that. I'm pretty sure they're gonna add it, as long as they don't make you drop the resolution. And now let's compare the quality of HDR video since both of these have bright displays. One interesting difference is that the iPhone can now play back 4K video, even the iPhone SE, whereas the Note is limited to 1440p. And then if you have it in the 120 Hertz mode, you're actually limited to 1080p. So I love being able to oversample. I gotta be honest and say, wow, the iPhone's HDR really stands out. And that's interesting because the previous iPhones were always beaten out by the Samsungs. The highlights just look so much brighter. They pop so much more. We adjusted the top camera so we're not blowing those out. You guys can see the difference there. As far as the contrast, the iPhone looks better as well. It has a little bit more color and the image is sharper as well because we're streaming 4K compared to 1440p. And then of course, like I said, 120 Hertz, you can always do 1080. Now, if we stretch these out, you will see that the Note 20 is a lot more immersive. The edges are square, which fits video better, and we have a small hole punch instead of that large notch that is taking, a chunk out of that screen there. With that said, the Note 20 still has really good HDR, better than most phones, but it can't compete with the new OLED screen in the iPhone. And with that, let's compare the speakers. Now, I'm excited for this comparison. Apple didn't say that the iPhone 12s are any better, but they definitely are. And the Note 20 is the best sounding smartphone in terms of speakers I have ever heard. So go ahead and put on your best pair of headphones, or maybe if you just have one pair, the only pair you have, and let's take a listen. Let me know your thoughts down in the comment section below, and this was a very interesting one. First off, I do want to say that we did have Dolby Atmos turned on the Note 20, and I'm surprised to see that the iPhone does sound just as loud. Now, we also used the decibel meter on my Apple Watch, and the iPhone actually peaked 1 decibel louder. Both were very loud, and that is actually because the high frequencies are much more prominent. They are sharper, they're a little more clear, whereas the Note, the mids are actually the loudest point. The mids are louder than on the iPhone. Now, to be honest, I would prefer something right in the middle. In some cases, like with this song, the vocals sound excellent on the iPhone. For some other type of audio, some podcasts, the highs could be a little bit too much, where the opposite goes for the Note 20. Now, another area where the iPhone does win at is the bass. It definitely has a deeper, more bassy sound. So can I say that the iPhone smokes the Note? No, but Apple definitely made some big improvements, and I wonder why they didn't mention it. And now let's get into performance, and we're gonna start out by testing out the 5G speeds. Finally, Apple is in the modern world with 5G. Now in our city, we just have sub-6. We don't have mid-band or millimeter wave, but we are gonna compare them. Now, one very interesting thing is that the Note right now is showing full bars, and we're inside of a concrete building. The iPhone is showing only 2 out of 4 bars. And before I hit start, I wanna say that these have the same exact Snapdragon X55 modem, so that didn't change at all, and that is the best modem on the market. We're connected to the same server. Let's go ahead and start the test. And I know some people say don't run them both at the same time, but there's thousands of people connected to the same tower using it right now. And this is interesting, very interesting. Even though the Note 20 shows 5 bars compared to now just 1 bar on the iPhone, look at that. The iPhone got more than twice the speed. That is very weird. Now, as far as the upload, they are practically identical right now. So that's weird that the iPhone is faster even though it has less bars. Maybe the antennas are better. Now, I actually went outside right now and I tested both without being in a concrete building, and for some reason the iPhone, it was only connecting to LTE, not 5G, but the download speed was actually a good amount faster. And then when you switch to upload, as you know, 5G uploading is much faster, and so the speed difference there is pretty big. And now as soon as I come inside, it's back to 5G. That's very odd. Maybe it chose LTE because it was faster for a download outside. Now, the last difference is that the new iPhones, they have this a cutout for the millimeter wave antenna, whereas the Note 20 doesn't have it anywhere. So based on these results, it might seem like the iPhone might have better antennas. And now let's compare the CPU and graphics performance. I'm gonna go ahead and run the CPU benchmark. You guys may have seen that the Note 20 has a massive 12 gigs of RAM compared to the iPhone 12 Pro Max. It has 6 gigs of RAM. Now, that's a huge difference, but in the real world, there actually isn't much difference anymore. The previous iPhones, they did struggle with RAM. The camera used a lot, so some background apps would shut down. And thankfully, Apple responded, gave us 6 gigs of RAM, and now in PhoneBuff's speed test, the iPhone kept every single app open, and he said that was the first time he's ever seen it. So as far as RAM, no issues anymore. We have our results here, and wow, that is a big difference. We have 981 compared to 1604. This 1604 is beating out all computers out there. It's incredible. So that is a 65% difference in single core score. Now, as far as multi-core score, we have a 35% difference, still pretty dang big. And the reason why the multi-core isn't as big of a difference is because the Snapdragon 865 Plus in here is an 8-core processor. Apple's A14 Bionic is only a 6-core processor. Now, one thing this score doesn't completely quantify is machine learning. Both of these have machine learning cores, but the A14 doubled the machine learning cores and made each core faster. So if we take a look, the iPhone is almost twice as fast in machine learning. You look at speech recognition, all of that is so much better on the A14 Bionic. And now let's compare the graphics performance. We're using GFX Bench. We're running the Aztec Ruins 1440p off screen to make sure it's completely fair, that doesn't care about the screen resolutions. Let's get started. And here are the results. Wow, that is a big difference. And this is the latest apps, and we're trying to make this as fair as possible. The A14's graphics chip is incredible. We got 38.2 frames per second, whereas with the Note 20 Ultra, we got 23 frames per second. So the iPhone is actually more than 65% higher frame rate. Now, I do have to say that if you're somebody who's gaming right now, both of these phones are gonna be very similar. They can handle the latest games. The difference comes in 2 years from now, 3 years from now, where the iPhone is still gonna be great with the latest games, whereas the Note 20 is gonna start to struggle. And now let's talk about battery life. The Note 20 Ultra has a 4,500 milliamp hour battery, whereas the iPhone is now at 3,600. So the iPhone actually got smaller. Now, thankfully, the A14 is more optimized as long as you're not gaming. And in the real world, the battery life difference is about an hour to an hour and a half with the Samsung if you're not using the 120 Hertz. So iPhone did actually get worse and the Note is actually the king now. And with that, we have a difference in chargers. The Note 20 comes with a 25-watt charger. It could charge up in just over an hour, whereas the iPhone doesn't come with a charger at all. You have to buy one of Apple's 20-watt chargers or a third-party one. And with that, you can also buy a Magsafe charger, and that does promise 15-watt peak charging, but that's only peak. The Samsung can also do 15-watt wireless charging, but I feel like it keeps up the wattage higher than the iPhone. Now, along with that, with the Magsafe, you have a bunch of different accessories. There's car mounts coming out, a bunch of stuff, and we also have things like wallets. So this can definitely be useful, and I am using this wallet and I'm liking it. And the Note obviously has its own killer feature, and that is the S Pen. Now, I have to say, I'm not a very big fan of the S Pen, but I don't have anything against it. I just don't really use it. I try to make myself use it for a couple days, and then I just end up going back to the touchscreen. But for some people, the S Pen is definitely a really nice feature, especially if you like to draw, take notes, stuff like that. And now let's talk about the cameras. Both of these have excellent cameras, but we do have some differences. Now on the back, the Samsung has this massive camera bump. That's because it has that crazy optical telescopic zoom camera. You're gonna get some great zoom photos. And then it also has a 108 megapixel camera with an even larger sensor than the new 12 Pro Max. Now, I have to be honest, if we start taking photos right now, this video is gonna be 10 minutes longer, and we are gonna be doing an unbiased camera comparison, taking a look at a ton of different things and putting these really head to head. So make sure you guys are subscribed so you guys catch that. That's gonna be coming out on Monday. You don't wanna miss it. And now let's talk about the prices and my final verdict. The iPhone doesn't come with that charging brick, but it also doesn't cost $1,300. It's $200 less expensive than the Note 20 Ultra at $1,100. Now, as far as the storage, both come with 128 gigabytes of storage, but the Samsung does offer a micro SD card slot, which means you can expand it in the future and for a lot less money. With iPhone, it costs more and you have to do it when you buy it. And finally, which one of these phones should you buy? One huge difference we haven't mentioned yet is the fact that we have Android compared to iOS. A lot of people like iOS. If you use MacBooks, you have iPads, if you want to use an Apple Watch, it is really nice to have. And if you want more customization, a lot more options, you want 120 Hertz right now, the Android is really nice. Of course, if you want really good zoom photos, the Note 20 is also good, but a lot of the advantages such as the nice screen, great speakers, HDR, that part is now gone, or the iPhone at least is very competitive now. So you guys let us know which one of these phones do you think is the true flagship, which one is the king, down in the comments section below. Make sure you guys click that circle above to subscribe, help us reach 500,000 before the end of this year. And if you guys wanna see the camera comparison, you'll wanna do that. If you guys wanna see the previous camera comparison, the unbiased blind one, really fun to watch, we have it right over there. Thank you guys for watching, this has been Max, and I will see you in the next video.